Hello friends, and welcome once again to Figure Study, where we appreciate the form in Transformers. Not a particularly elegant form right now. Today we're taking a look at Transformers Cybertron Metroplex. This is thus far the first and only Metroplex I have ever owned. For a couple of different reasons. Generations Metroplex is way too freaking big, and he honestly looks kind of lanky for a really big guy. And original Metroplex, I'm just not a fan of how he looks, and I'm not really huge into G1, like the G1 toy line, I mean. So, yeah. And aside from that, my other options are Mastermade Titan, which looks cool, but I already have Apollo, and I'm just not as into that figure as I was Apollo. And Make Toys Utopia, which truthfully I would like to get my hands on Make Toys Utopia, but that thing is expensive, so no. So for the time being, Cybertron Metroplex. And as far as I know, this is the only Metroplex figure that doesn't actually do what Metroplex is supposed to do, traditionally speaking. By which I mean, it doesn't turn into a city, it doesn't turn into a ship, it just turns into this, a robot, and then an even taller robot. So, a bit less traditional for Metroplex, but then that's fine. I really don't mind. Like I've said so many times, I have no real attachments to most of the figures. I barely know anything about the fiction. So, fine, whatever. Though I will say the name Metroplex does carry certain connotations, and it's a bit disappointing to have a figure named Metroplex that doesn't actually turn into any kind of building or city, because that's kind of what you get from the name Metroplex. But regardless, Cybertron Metroplex turns into a brick with a claw arm. It's not a great alt mode. I mean, it's fine for what it is, and the transformation is pretty simple, but I do enjoy it because of the way things just kind of chunk into new sections to create robot bits, or to change the proportions of the robot, depending. But yeah, this mode's pretty weak. You can see some treads at the bottom there, some like shovel, bulldozer, scoop things there. There's a teeny tiny cockpit right there, and then this big claw digging arm, which we'll get to in a minute. Now, I don't have this in the configuration that the instructions say to have it in, at least what I believe the instructions say to have it in, because I don't actually have instructions. As I understand it, these bits are supposed to be slid back further, and yeah, no, I think it looks better to have them pushed in to make it a bit more compact. I mean, if I do slide it back, you can kind of see it's like, I don't know. It looks even more like a hunched over robot. I feel like when you pull it in a little bit more, then at least you've got this white bit. It kind of all comes together there. Makes it look a little bit more compact. So bringing them in close for more detail. I'm just going to take this off because for whatever reason on mine, this does not like to stay pegged in. Like, there are 2 points where you can peg this claw arm in, like 2 different sets of pegs, and the default one, for whatever reason, the one that I think is kind of the one you're really supposed to do, doesn't like to stay, whereas this one stays a lot better, so I don't really know what the story is with that, but for now we're just gonna put this off to the side. And yeah, I mean, there's a fair bit of detail in here. It's not quite the overly textured business that we get with like the more current figures, especially Titan's Return. They loved doing texture on that. I do like, though, how this transformation joint here comes together in this mode to create one cohesive detail, and it even has like the little grooved line in there, goes all the way through to kind of bring it all together. That's a neat little effect. I kind of wish more on this figure did that, but it is what it is. And then got some piston-y detail in there. You can kind of make out the treads a little bit better. And it's mostly just a robot curled up, and it has like a shovel on top. And then there's the cockpit, which just kind of looks like an angled robot face, but whatever. And yeah, it's just kind of a there alt mode. These little bits here apparently are easy to lose because I got mine used and it came with 2 here and only 1 up here. So one of those is missing, but whatever. I don't care that much. Yeah, it's just a brick. A brick with scoops on the front and treads on the side and like a little cockpit to try and make it look like a thing. And it's really not. As for the digger shovel thing, it's got this little buzzsaw looking thing with like little scoops, which, I mean, it looks intimidating. And there's some nice paintwork on the edges there. Only on the one side though, because of course. And some more details throughout. Not bad in the detail department, but again, not super detailed. And then got the claw end that can open and close. And there is a mini-con, I guess, that's supposed to come with them and go up here. I don't have the mini-con, so oh well. And yeah, that's it for this thing. There are electronics in here, but I do not have batteries in it, and it's just, who cares? I'm sure somebody out there cares, and for that I apologize, but yeah. So I'm just straightening this out, closing this up, and we'll just do the transformation thing right away. Get all that set up, and I don't have the official cyber key for this guy, but I have a cyber key, so I'm going to use that, and then boom, pops open, and it becomes his staff weapon in robot mode, so yay! So yeah, I'll do more in this once we get to robot mode, but that's that. And before I forget, I should do size comparisons, so his brickishness with a Power of the Primes Deluxe and the Amiibo, and it's a pretty decently sized brick. I will give it that. It's unsightly and kind of lame looking, but it's substantial. Anyway, seeing as how this mode is not really interesting in the slightest, let's just move on to his... Oh, what the heck, we'll do both robot modes. So we'll move on to his first robot mode. So here we've got Cybertron Metroplex in his, I think this is called his work mode. I don't know. It looks very stumpy and half transformed, and I'm not really a fan of all these visible joints in the front and the screw holes right in front of the hips and stuff, but there's some thought put into this at least. Like the gold coloring up in here and some of the detail in there. But yeah, not big on this. And we'll take a look at the head in his full robot mode a little bit later. But yeah, no, this mode is just a little bit meh. Like the arms are either too long or the legs are too stumpy. And he's got enormous shins. And this really kind of far coming out backpack. And then the head, like I said, I'm not going to go into the head detail right now, but for me, at least, I feel like since this mode is sort of his meh, take it or leave it, half transformed mode, I actually prefer to keep the head turned around this way so that it has more of a like worker drone kind of look to it. I don't think this is the official way to do it, but it's my toy, so that's how I'm going to go with it. So yeah, it's fine. And this actually does work pretty well for like nondescript robo-drone eyes, so it's the other reason why I prefer that for this particular mode. And size-wise real quick, there he is with the Power of the Primes Deluxe and the Amiibo, and you can see that even though he's only half transformed, he's still not small. I'm probably going to have to end up doing the rest of this video standing because I'm going to have to move the camera back quite a fair bit. Okay. Let's get this final, official, full robot mode business underway. Well, I was right. Definitely had to pull the camera way back. May not even be pulled back far enough, but it's the best I can do. Let's see if maybe I can put him back just a little bit more. No, not really. Alright, well, it's the best I can do. So, here we have Cybertron Metroplex, and he's big. He is big. Not the biggest Transformer that I have, but he gets tall. Now this robot mode I am much more keen on than the half-transformed one. His proportions are still a little bit weird because now his legs are like super duper long and his head is really tiny, but I think this looks much cooler. You get a bit more detail here and there, like up in the chest. This section has a lot more detail, the legs, a lot more painted detail. It works better. And before getting into the nitty-gritty, take a quick look at his staff, which you can almost see in its entirety. It's slightly taller than he is. There you've got the open end there. Makes it look like less of a weapon and more like some kind of an ornate artifact or something. Granted, I've never seen the show, so I don't know how true that is, but that's just kind of the impression that I get based on the overall look of this thing. And I'm going to put it in his hand real quick, so pardon me while I do that. Okay, there we've got Metroplex with the staff, and I think I'm actually going to angle this up just a bit so that you can get a little bit more of that in the shot there. And yeah, I mean, altogether, he's a bit lanky, but I do like the way this robot mode looks. And I'm not a huge fan of the bricky excavator alt mode, but I am a fan of how that brick accordions out to make this very large, imposing looking robot. He's got some nice colors on him. I mean, I like the white, the gray, with the dark blue and the red, and just like a little bit of gold. It's a nice mix. And I like how there are two different tones of blue in there for just a little bit more, not really contrast, but it helps. And like little bits of silver here and there, like details in the pelvis area and a little bit up on the head crest there. Speaking of that head, getting in close here, I'm actually going to have to manually move the camera in a bit just because of the height and tripod limitations that I'm dealing with. But here you can see it's kind of grumpy looking. It's a bit of a grump. It's not a bad looking head. I mean, it's not necessarily what I would consider a Metroplex head, but it's fine. I'm also kind of on the fence about the blue antenna here. Part of me thinks they look goofy, and another part of me thinks that he looks weird without them. So it's kind of a pick your poison kind of deal. But I do like how the head looks. And I think it's clever how you've got this little detail up here coupled with the bit on the what is now the back. And like the way that this head is designed, you've got the screen that was the front now works as the light piping source for the back, so that makes his eyes and the bit of his forehead glow. But when it's turned around, this is the light piping source on the back that allows the screen to glow a bit. It doesn't work great, but it's still a clever idea. And I do like how there isn't a whole lot of color breakup here, but you've got that silver and the gold, which does work really well with the black. And it's an interesting helmet shape, like these kind of jagged bits that come in from the side, make him look not necessarily like a bad guy, but not used to seeing jagged elements on good guy characters that much. Really, my only problem with his head in robot mode is that it's just a bit proportionally tiny. Anyway, let's do some quick size comparisons here. And here he is with the Power of the Primes Deluxe and the Amiibo, and he's a lot bigger in this mode. A lot bigger. Like, he could step on and instantly kill a deluxe size figure if he if he wanted to. And because he was close enough that I could actually reach him around all of my recording equipment, there he is with a Power of the Primes leader class. So you can see there, he's still quite large. And I figured it wouldn't hurt to do one more Cybertron to Cybertron comparison, almost literally now that I think about it. But here we've got Metroplex with Primus. And yeah, Metroplex in his fully extended robot mode is actually taller than Primus. Which, I mean, at this point, it's not a huge feat to be taller than Primus, but still, he is taller. Though Primus is definitely bulkier. And I do believe that is going to do it for Metroplex. Let me just get him recentered here, at least a little bit. Vaguely. Somewhat. Kinda. So yeah, Cybertron Metroplex is a figure that I'm confused as to why I like him so much. Because the alt mode is kind of really lame and disappointing and just overall lackluster. The secondary robot mode is also a bit on the disappointing side. And the primary robot mode is impressive, but that's really the only thing that this toy has going for it. But for whatever reason, I think it's just the simplicity and effectiveness of the transformation, coupled with the glorious sound of those ratchets. I don't know, I do enjoy having this guy on a shelf, regardless of how his alt mode may be. But anyway, that's it for my one and only Metroplex. What do you all think? Are any of you out there Metroplex fans, like any kind of Metroplex? And if you are, which Metroplex is your favorite? And, why not? Let's count third parties in this. I feel like if it were up to me, if I actually had it, Utopia would probably be my favorite, but I don't have $400 to $500 to spend on that right now. But I am curious to see what everyone else thinks. As far as Cybertron figures go, like anyone out there who has more Cybertron figures, where would you put this guy on your list? I'd put him, granted I only have 3 Cybertron figures right now. There's the Leader Class Prime, Primus, and Metroplex. I'd put him as number 3. Not because I think he's weak, it's just I like Prime and Primus that much more. And does anyone else have that weird problem with the connectors on the shovel staff bit not quite holding securely in one or the other spot? Because it's a little annoying, but like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the alt mode anyway, so it doesn't eat into that too much. It's just a little irritating. But whatever your thoughts, please feel free to let me know in the comments. I do always appreciate hearing from you all. And while you're down there, also feel free to like or subscribe. Any combination of those 3 things would make me a happy Rob. Remember, art is more than meets the eye, which is actually pretty apt in this case because the alt mode is pretty lame.